ever an icon, she is one. Through the award-winning Oprah Winfrey Show, she gave voice to people and to issues rarely seen on television. She made conversations that shaped how generations of Americans thought about themselves and thought about their country. I also want to say publicly that there's so much I could say about her and what she's accomplished, but I want you to know that without the support, without the vision, without the friendship of Oprah Winfrey, there might not be a National Museum of African American History and Culture. She may not remember, but years ago, like 2005, when we began this endeavor and we were dreaming, we didn't know exactly what to do, she took the time to help shape our dreams, to remind us how to engage a public, how to tell stories that are meaningful and true. She took the time and made a dream a reality. Her steadfast support and commitment to the museum has been a source of inspiration for us all, for which we are truly grateful. So I am really pleased to say this for the first time. Join me in welcoming to the Oprah Winfrey Theater, Miss Oprah Winfrey.
Amen. Well, children, where there's so much racket, there's bound to be something out of kilter. I think that twixt the women's in the north and the men's in here, white man's gonna be in a fix pretty soon. That little man in the back over there say, women need to be helped into carriages and over mud puddles. And I'm here to tell you, ain't nobody helped me into no carriages, and I ain't never been helped over nary a mud puddle. And ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arms. I done planted and plowed and gathered into bonds and worked as much and ate as much as any man when I could get it. Ain't nobody could hit me, and ain't I a woman? I done born 13 children, and seen them all sold off into slavery. And when I cried out with a woman's grief, ain't nobody but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman? I done borne the lash as well. And ain't I a woman? It's impossible to stand in this space, to be in this building and not feel the spirits. Can you feel them? Yes. Have a seat. I want you to have a seat and feel the spirits. Feel the spirits. The presence of the spirits who honor us by accepting our invitation to make their homes here in the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Feel the spirits, because they have waited a very long time to tell their stories. But I wanted to start with the words of Sojourner Truth, because those words, I've been reciting those words out loud since I was a little girl. Somewhere inside myself, I knew that I had come from a long lineage. So I started learning Fannie Lou Hamer and Sojourner Truth, all the Black poets, Maya Angelou. But I've been reciting those words out loud because they resonated so deeply within me. And because her question, ain't I a woman, is at the heart of why the work to include African American women's voices in our historical and cultural narrative, in the telling and retelling of each and every story, is so absolutely necessary if we want to be serious about getting to the heart of the matter of gender equality and empowerment in this country. And I am honored today to stand as Oprah Winfrey in the Oprah Winfrey Theater. Hello. To add my voice to the choir. So Sojourner's Truth, her famous question came in response to a definition of womanhood that had just been offered by a white male delegate to the 1851 Women's Convention in Akron, Ohio. They were doing the same thing in 51 that we're doing here today. It was a definition which seemed, at the time, determined to exclude her altogether. So rejecting the notion from that little man in the back over there, that wealth, that male protection, and that class privilege are what defines who is a woman and who is not, she offers instead her own lived reality as the proof that she needs to take her place and her seat at the welcome table. And as she speaks, her passion and her eloquence are undeniable. But here's the thing, all these years, in reciting that Ain't I a Woman speech, in talking to audiences, in sharing that story, the thing that is undeniable for me and has impressed me is her certainty. It's her certainty I admire most. It is her defiant refusal to be made less than the woman fully grown that she knows herself to be. And that is what she is asking of all of us, because her womanness is never up for debate. Ain't I a woman? Her question is actually rhetorical. It's a challenge to the little man in the back over there. And to anyone who thought that they could confine a being as majestic and as magical, as mysterious, as complete as she was, to a small, dark space where she could be disrespected and be desexed, where she could be robbed of her humanity, not a woman, certainly not a man, but some strange, unformed creature distinguished only by her physical strength, by her ability to bear the lash and her ability to suffer the pain of her lost children without going completely mad. I think about her, I think about them all the time. I think about how is it that they did not go insane? Really. Again and again and again and again and again, losing your mother, losing your brother, losing your children, losing your husband, working all day in the field, getting up before the sun came up, not finishing till the sun went down, toiling in the hot sun, not being able to ask for a glass of water, coming home not just tired, bone tired, exhausted, tired in your bones, and your family is gone. Without a word, without a whisper, they are gone. Disappeared, just gone. Come back from the fields, and they are just gone. So, hear the words of Alice Walker when she says, what is real is what did happen. What happened to me and what happens to me is the most real of all, she says. And I'm here to testify that what happened to them is a part of me. It's a part of us. It's a part of me. And ain't I a woman? That question is at the heart of Black women's collective experience. It isn't that we haven't tried to answer it. It isn't that we haven't tried, we have. But because it's often just us talking to us about us, because we're often the only people listening when we're talking to us about us, it's been difficult for us to be heard, but not anymore. Not anymore, because we have the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And I'm here to tell you that its very creation, its very existence, it being here, screams, hear me. Hear me now. Hear me. The words of Mary Helen Washington. She says, if there is a single distinguishing feature of the literature of Black women, and this accounts for their lack of recognition, it is this, that our literature is about us. It's about Black women. It takes the trouble to record the thoughts and the words and the feelings and the deeds and experiences that make the reality of being Black in America look very different from what men have written. Because there is this overall narrative, really, but there's also the specific Black woman narrative, without which the entire edifice is a lie. No matter how carefully constructed, no matter how carefully presented, as if it contains the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. It does not and cannot, because if we are not there, the true American story cannot be told. Because we are always there, and we have always been there doing everything. Being everything. Doing our part and then some, because as Gwendolyn Brooks said, we would have to conduct our blooming, she said, in the noise and whip of the whirlwind. That's what she said. And so we did. And so we still do. In fact, we're just getting started conducting our business, because we've got entrepreneurs and educators and directors and filmmakers and communications experts and visionaries. We got first ladies and fearless warriors. We got poets, we got politicians, we even got a princess. And we've also got our own network. And ain't I a woman? On the OWN network right now, we're focused on telling stories well, so that you can see yourself in them. Stories like Queen Sugar and stories like Greenleaf. And on June 19th, Mara Brock-Akil brings a new story called Love Is, where you just get to see beautiful, beautiful faces on screen. Beautiful reflections, all of them, of art imitating life as we know it. Life in our churches, and life in our kitchens, and life in our bedrooms. We've been unseen for so long. We've been silent for too long. And make no mistake about this. There's a high price to be paid for accepting your own invisibility. There is a diminishing of soul and spirit when the pictures you see and the definitions you hear never reflect your specific womanness. When the truth of who you are is denied relentlessly, aggressively, audaciously. I mean, I grew up, there was nobody on screen but buckwheat. Nobody wanted to be Buck. So is it any wonder that we sometimes fell silent, and that silence created a void, a sense of primal abandonment and despair sometimes that has shaped not only our history, but has too often shaped our daily lives? Because it makes us, the fact that you never see yourself, you never hear your stories, it makes you begin to doubt ourselves, to wonder if we're lacking some elusive, intangible thing that could make us whole. It makes you feel isolated. It makes you be confused, and you begin to wonder if you'll ever be enough. Well, this is what I know after thousands and thousands of interviews. Everybody feels that. It's the human condition. Am I enough? But it's the human condition on steroids for Black women everywhere. You know, when I talk to my young girl students in South Africa. The insecurity and the fear that comes up over and over and over for them is that question. Am I enough? Am I enough? Can I be enough? And my answer is always, yes, you already are enough because you come from what is more than enough. And you just need to be reminded of where you've come from. And that's what this place does. It's why I love this museum so much. It's here to shake the memory banks. It's here to reiterate the knowledge of what you have been through so you know what you can get through. Hear the words. Hear the words of Pericles. She says, we have sometimes shivered at the edges of a very cold place where people do not always see our beauty or understand the rhythm of our song. That's what she said. But we never stopped singing. No, how could we? Because in the face of all that attempted silencing, the woman who survives intact must be ever vigilant. She must constantly remind herself that her values and your choices are important. You must know inside, in the deepest part of your being, that you matter. Not just that you matter, but also why. So for me, the foundational base of empowerment, of entrepreneurship, of any kind of engagement, the foundational base of my success, of my well-being, my wholeness, my everything is knowing who I am and where I come from. In my living room right now is a painting that I've owned now for 30 years. You can Google it. It's called To the Highest Bidder. And it's at the center of my house. And it's at the center of my house because it actually is symbolic of the foundation of not the house, but the foundation for my life. The painting is by Harry Roseland, who was a genre painter in the early 20th, late 19th century. And the painting is over 6 feet tall, and it shows a slave woman on the auction block holding her daughter's hand. And I cannot come in the door, my front door, or I cannot leave without passing that painting. I am reminded of where I come from every day of my life, and I am reminded because I never want to forget it. And in my library, I have a framed list of enslaved African-American people, remember I showed you, who were held in bondage on various plantations, listed in the ledgers alongside the cows and the horses and the buggies and the other property. And I pass this list every day. And often I stop in front of it and just speak their names out loud and their ages. Jonas, 11 years old, $500. Sarah, 41 years old, $900. Elizabeth, 57, $800. And I force myself to consider the absurdity and the obscenity of prices being affixed to each one should they be placed up for sale. And I sometimes just pause before them with a prayer, particularly before I have to make a big decision about one of my companies or whether I move forward or whether I stay still. It reminds me, speaking those names out loud, not only of where I've come from, but how far I have to go because of them. And it reminds me that I am never alone. It reminds me of what I've come through to get through. And even when I find myself in settings where I am the only Black woman still, that kind of singularity, it doesn't make me uncomfortable. And I gotta tell you, it never has made me uncomfortable. I walk into a room just as cool as you please. And to a man, the fellas stand or fall down on their knees. Because I've always known I was never anywhere God didn't want me to be. And I've had no issues accepting the success or being worthy of what I know I work for. But these days, it simply makes me wonder, though, when I'm still the only woman or person of color sitting at the table, where my sisters are. It makes me wonder, who has constructed what obstacles aimed at keeping them out? Because without artificial barriers, we would be represented in every room where the criteria are excellence and discipline and determination and vision. We would be there at that table. So these moments when I walk into the room just as cool as you please and I'm the only person of color, I'm the only woman, these are the moments I call upon the ancestors to surround me, to sustain me, to strengthen me. And I call upon them here today. I call upon them and I offer myself to them. I say, I am here. I am ready. And okay, y'all, here we go. Because when I walk into any room, when and where I enter, I am already more than I was. I already embody the truth of Maya Angelou's wise words when she said, I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. I stand not only as 10,000, I stand as 10,000 to the 10th power. I stand on solid rock. I stand because I am the dream and the hope of the slave, and I am more than the seed of the free that Langston Hughes talked about in the poem, The Negro Mother. I am the fruit. I am the flower. I am the blossoming tree, and I shall not be moved. Ain't I a woman? And when I walk with them, when I walk with that 10,000, this is how I am carried through life. I'm carried through life, standing with the 10,000s. And when I walk with them, I remember something else Maya taught me that Jimmy Baldwin taught her. She used to say to me, baby, your crown has been paid for. All you got to do is put it on your head and wear it. So when we come into this museum, we get to see how the crowns were laid out for us. That's what you did for us, Lunny Bunch. You laid the crowns out so we can see in plain view. We get to see and feel that sense of connection to the past that allows us to step out of our history and step into a future that is brighter than any of them could have ever imagined. But here we are now, together, reshaping our history to finally reflect the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's what this museum is all about. And we're learning to understand and learning to embrace the power from which we have come. That power, I'm telling you, that power, that sense of spiritual energy that you feel here, that's the way station. It's the fuel tank. It's the mainstay of all empowerment. Look at what they did. Now imagine what you can do. We need to wrap ourselves in sojourner certainty when we say, yes, this is our story. Yes, you need to know that story. You need to know it in order to know yourself. You need to know it in order to know your strength and to understand that strength times strength times strength times strength times strength equals power. Look at what they did. And then imagine what you can do, what we can do together. And then let's get about the business of doing it. Hear the words of Pericles. She says, we know that we are walking in the footprints made deep by the confident strides of women who parted the air before them like the forces of nature that they were. And we are grateful because we need their wisdom now. We need it now more than ever. We need their clarity and we need their courage. We need their vision to dream bigger, to climb higher, to sing louder, to walk taller, to be better, to allow ourselves to move around fearlessly in spaces that are big enough to hold all that we are, all that we have been, and all that we are intended to be. The reason why so many of us can't move forward is you're in a space too cramped to hold your spirit. You all cramped up. You've got to be in alignment with what it is you want to do. Otherwise, the empowerment doesn't work. We have got to stay ready. We've got to stay tuned up spiritually. It starts in here and moves outward. We've got to stay tuned up spiritually, mentally, so that when we are asked to create whole worlds from scratch, we say yes, yes, of course we can. Because that creating thing, that's our specialty. That's what we do. We have so many worlds inside of us, so many starlit galaxies, so many deep rivers of wisdom and so much truth. We know so much. And we have so much joy buried, waiting, bursting to get out. And yes, we'll be happy to share them. We just been waiting on y'all to see it and to ask. Because we've always known the answer to Sojourner's question, ain't I a woman? The answer is yes. Always and forever, yes. I am a woman in fully grown, whole, a phenomenal woman, as Maya said. And when you see me walk in, it ought to make you proud. Hear the words of Marty Evans. I am a black woman. The music of my song, some sweet arpeggio of tears, is written in a minor key. And I can be heard humming in the night. I can be heard humming in the night, because I'm a black woman, tall as a cypress. I'm a black woman, strong. Beyond all definition still, they keep trying. But beyond definition still, defying place, I am. Defying time, I am. And circumstance, I am a black woman. Assailed? Yes. Impervious? Yes. Indestructible? Yes. I am a black woman. Look upon me and be renewed. Thank you. Thank you. So I said to Lonnie, I love taking questions. I love the spirit and energy of this place, so I'm happy to take questions for as long as they tell me I can. It was so fun. Remember I told you walking into the exhibit yesterday and the Mari Evans book is there, and I said, I'm going to do that. It's one of my favorite poems. Anybody got a question? Yes, ma'am. Lady in orange. Yes.
In North Carolina,
Uh-huh.
you may know Whiteville.
Yeah.
Across the marsh, Whiteville, North Carolina.
Whiteville, yes.
What inspires you every single day? Because you inspire us every moment, anytime we see you. So what inspires you?
I will tell you, I live in the space of inspiration for myself. And I thank you for saying that. The truth is, my calling is to inspire. And I have been doing that since I was 3 years old in the Kosciuszko Methodist Buffalo Church that you'll see when you see the exhibit. That's where I started out doing Easter pieces. Jesus rose on Easter Day, hallelujah, hallelujah, all the angels did proclaim. And you know, when we, in the black culture, we would get all the old hymnals that had been passed down from the white churches. And we'd get, you know, all their discarded stuff. So you would just get like a little piece of a thing and they'd hand it to you and they'd say, this is your piece to learn for either Mother's Day or Easter or Christmas. So my broadcasting career actually started in the church doing those pieces. And I recognized that the thread of my purpose in life began there, just like yours. If you start thinking about where did your yearning to be you start? For me, it started in the church, with the sisters in the front row fanning themselves, saying to my grandmother, Hattie Mae is a talking child. My inspiration, like I went through the whole exhibit. It's quite extraordinary. May I say hashtag goals to have your exhibit on exhibit at a museum. But I got through the whole exhibit yesterday, and the thing that made me cry was at the end. There was a book where people had written just what the exhibit meant to them and what the Oprah show had meant to them over the years. And a woman wrote, watching you every day is the reason why I love myself so fiercely. And that made me cry, because that is my goal. My intention is to use my life as an inspiration to other people to see what is possible for themselves. Not my life is impossible, but my life is an inspiration for you to see the light in your own. And so what makes me the happiest is when somebody gets that. And all the years on the Oprah show, I could always feel when I had connected to the audience, when something was said and it was actually heard. And people, like, I remember the time I shared something Maya had taught me about when people show you who they are, believe them. And I could feel people get it. I could feel people get it, because the people in the audience did just what you just did. They went, yeah. And then somebody said, you teach people how to treat you. And people go, yeah. So you can feel when you're connecting and you're doing that. So there is nothing that makes me happier in life than making other people be able to fulfill their own happiness. You know, I have all these beautiful girls who are, some of them, I saw you ask a question, but beautiful girls from South Africa, hello, who are stand-up girls, so they can see you. All these girls I've known since they were, since they were 12 and 13 years old. Now they're all graduating college and going out into the world. And I tell them all the time, don't worry about a Mother's Day gift, don't worry about that. First of all, words are important, so knowing how you feel is important. But the other thing is, your happiness is my reward. Your success is my reward. My only goal is to have opened a door, and you being smart enough, wise enough to step through that door and accept the opportunity. So what inspires me is having other people be inspired. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Flowers. That's you. I can hear you. Just. It's true. Well, first of all, there is nothing, thank you for that, and good luck with your career. Yeah, you're a manifester, so that's good. I'm a big manifester. But here's the deal. There is no dream that you can dream that the power that is God, regardless of what name you call it by, has not dreamed bigger for you. So let's just, for the sake of everybody being on the same page, let's use life for God. Life has dreamed a dream for you. And your goal, your number one job is to figure out what that dream is. And align yourself with the dream. Because the dream cannot come to you unless you're willing to meet it energetically in the same place. So if your energy is off, which I say to my girls all the time, they could teach this class right now, on being in flow. If you are not in flow with God's dream for you, with life's dream for you, if you are out of order, if you are out of sync, it cannot come to you. It will not come. Because the whole purpose of your life is to line yourself up with the purpose. And so if you are operating in fear, if you are operating in jealousy, jealousy will kill you. Jealousy will keep any kind of anger or jealousy you have about anybody else. So here are a couple laws I have. The first law is the third law of motion in physics, which says for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And we showed that very beautifully in The Color Purple when Miss Seeley says to Mr., everything you even try to do to me is already done to you. That is not just a rhetorical saying, that is law. That is Newton's third law of motion in physics, which says everything that goes out is coming back. It's just like everything that goes up is coming down. May take it a long time to come down, is coming down. Everything that goes out is coming back, it's coming back. So, to answer the power of manifestation and meditation, what meditation does is sync you up with the source. What meditation does is allows you to literally tap into the power that created you so that you are in alignment with that. And so when you carry that out into the world, everything that you do comes from the center of that alignment that's coming from the source that we call God, we call divine energy, divine intelligence, whatever name you want to give it to, we call life. When you are synced up with life, life just gives to you. It opens doors, it creates experiences, it allows you to meet people, things show up you never thought were going to show up, and you are doing what is the purpose of your soul being here. So one of my favorite teachers is Gary Zukav, who says that authentic power is when you learn to use your personality, which I've done very well. Use your personality to serve the energy of your soul. So you are the bigger soul that has a personality. When you figure out how to I have a big personality. It's lovely, it's charming, but it's not me. It's not me. I'm here to do my soul's work. And I use my personality to serve the soul's work. And because I know what the soul's work is, I heard somebody ask earlier about what should you be praying. The prayer is use me. Mm-hmm. You are here to be used as a vessel from the source from which you have come. And everybody has a different talent. And the reason we're all so messed up is because you're looking at everybody else's talent and wishing you had some of their talent. All the energy that you spend thinking about, wishing about, being jealous of, envious of anybody else is energy that you're not only putting out is going to come back to you negatively, but you're taking that away from you. All your energy should be forced on what do I have to offer? What do I have to give? How can I be used in service? Because Dr. King's message of not everybody can be famous, but everybody can be great because greatness is determined by service. And there is not a job in here that you can do that you don't switch the paradigm to service and not make that job more fulfilling. I don't care what the job is. If you say, I'm a singer, I'm a dancer, I'm an artist, I'm a teacher, I'm a nurse, I'm a doctor, I'm a janitor, I'm a clerk, if you say, if I look at this from how do I use this in service to something bigger than myself? Yes. It no longer becomes a job. It becomes an offering to the world. And that is why you're here. And when you can line up with whatever that is, Line up with that. And all you have to do is keep asking the question. And ask the question in purity, not in, when's it gonna come? You know, like, I'm not looking for a man, but is that him over there? I played that game. When you could do that, then it comes. It opens up. Don't you see that? And don't you see the difference between the days you meditate and you don't? Yeah, I try to do it every day, because if you don't, it's usually a more messed up day. Doesn't mean you don't get through life, because a lot of people are getting through life. It just means your life isn't as enhanced. And everybody who's afraid of meditation, don't even call it meditation. Don't call it that. Just say, I'm going to have, I have what I have a prayer chair. I have a prayer chair. And then I have just a place where I just go and be still. So the Bible says be still and know, because that's the only way you can know.
I do a show for Sports Illustrated, and I had to have this
on last week. That's the only knowing there is.
I'm trying to get a green one so you can,
and you actually do already know. There's nothing you don't know, and that's why an aha moment is an aha.
Oh yeah, I do, sorry.
Because an aha is a remembering of what you already knew. So somebody says something, you're in church, the preacher says something, you already knew that.
I apologize in advance.
It's just reminding you, that you have forgotten who you were and where you came from. And there is nothing that you cannot do if it is not aligned with the greater source. And the reason why people have so many struggles is because you're struggling against what is for you. You're pushing against it. So when you find that you're not moving forward, you need to stop and get still and say, what am I resisting? What am I pushing against? Because it can't come through if you push against it. It only comes through if you're in flow with it, and it just flows. It flows. And it cannot flow if you're afraid. It cannot flow if you're afraid. Okay?
That's okay.
Did that answer your question? Yeah. Okay, ma'am, here.
It adds to my kind of shifty swarthiness that I think
Oh.
that probably come.
Thank you. What year was that?
Oh, that's
2000. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Okay, couple more. Lady in yellow. Lady in yellow, then lady in green back there, and then you, and then we'll go.
The NFL's new anthem policy was the moment when the world of sports at last succumbed entirely to the stupidity of everything else happening right now. The moment we stopped pretending there could be any sort of temporary recreational escape hatch.
Because they're afraid that their words are going to be misinterpreted or the meaning will be misunderstood. To be honest, I sometimes have that fear as well, so I have a difficult time talking them through it. Lower than I thought, okay. So I have a difficult time talking them through it, coaching them through it, and I just wanted to know if maybe you could help me help them. Well, first of all, thank you for asking that. And so how do you do it? Well, how is it done, the storytelling? Well, we do live storytelling events. There are pop-up events all over the country. And so we bring groups of women together to tell stories around a central thing, similar to the moth, but people of color. Uh-huh. And so when I curate the shows, I bring them all together and we rehearse the shows and workshop the stories. And there's some very important stories that need to be told. Mm-hmm. But they're very nervous when I put them in front of a non-Black audience. They could do it here. Uh-huh. But when I take them outside and we do corporate events, they're like, I don't know. I'm afraid that they won't quite understand or they'll judge me. Well, I think that's because there's still some shame stuff involved, right? There's like nobody will understand. So here, I'm going to go around the way to answer that question. So I have this girls' school in South Africa, and I started it with the idea of taking girls who've come from challenged environments and bringing them into the school and giving them this great opportunity, which all of that's working because every one of my girls is brilliant. they come from, even the small rural schools that they come from. We went around, Gail and I, the first year, hand-picking every single girl. So every girl you see here today has been hand-picked because they were smart wherever they were. Then they come into my school and they're all thrown off because everybody's smart. It's the first time they've ever been in a place, and that's their first breakdown. Is, oh Lord, I used to be number 1, and now I'm number 12, Momo. So one of the things that has absolutely helped to turn my school around is the opening up and sharing of stories. And that started because Mpumi, stand up, Pumi, Pumi started doing it, speaking around the country and sharing her story. And has a, what's your website?
I just love sharing stories. I was orphaned to age when I was 9 years old. And I decided to, I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that when I told the story, I could see more of myself and my truth. And somehow the world was watching. And now it's a movement called Share Story Africa.
So, but at first, though, you were afraid to share the story. At first, all the girls, over half of our girls have lost their parents, both parents, to AIDS in my school. And everybody was ashamed of telling the story because they thought they were the only one, right? Yes. And now you know that there's nothing you can share. So thanks, Pooms. But I would say this. The reason why I was number 1 for 25 years is because I figured out early on there is no story anybody has ever heard that somebody else hasn't experienced. Nothing. And I also figured out, probably maybe the first or second year, that all pain is the same. That a mother in Somalia feels the same way as a mother in Seattle when she loses her child. And the common denominator in the human experience is our emotions and our feelings. And the more vulnerable and open you are willing to be with your story, the more actual understanding you create with other people, and the more powerful you become. People don't think less of you for sharing your story. They think more of you for having the courage to share it. So that's what I would say to your women. There is nothing that they can say that hasn't been felt. This is the classic example of this was when I did Toni Morrison for the first time on the book club, or second time. I chose Bluest Eye. Now, Bluest Eye is, you know, intrinsically a black story about, you know, a little black girl who wants to have blue eyes because she doesn't know enough about herself or doesn't think she's beautiful. So I thought this was going to be a story that black women all over the world would relate to. Women in Brazil, women in the Philippines, women in Korea, women in China, women all over the world said, I am that girl. And I was actually surprised. I'm like, how is everybody that girl? Because everybody has experienced that feeling of being the outcast because you didn't look like everybody else thought you were supposed to look. So another great example was when I went to interview in the mid to late 80s, a group of women in prison in Texas, all accused of killing their children. And there were 6 of them. All murderers in for life. And I sat around with them, spent an afternoon with them, ate with them, talked with them. And at the end, one of them came up and said, you're the first person who's ever treated us like we were real people. How could you sit with us? Because you know we've done terrible things. And I said, because I realized in the talking to you that all pain is the same. And this is what you did with yours. And so there is no story. All stories have the basic 7 themes of, you know, pain or suffering or loss or triumph or whatever. So when you get to the core of what's really going on, everybody who's lost a mother, it's why when Ava DuVernay had this beautiful scene, anybody watch Queen Sugar in here? First season, the first season, you see the first episode or second episode when the father dies. And the 3 generations, the father's on the bed dying, the Ralph Angel is there with his younger son. It's why people all over the world cried. Because everybody knows what it's like. Anybody who's ever been in a hospital room and had to have that moment. It knows no color. It knows no background. It knows no, creed, your belief system. It does. So it does not. So when you get to the root of what's really happening, we all feel the same. That is why I was able to be so successful, is because I knew that we started in Chicago, and I was on the air for a year in Chicago, a couple of years, 80, 84 I started. God, I look at that exhibit, and we were looking at me on the first day. I am actually wearing white stockings, y'all. Aquarius, I did not go to nurse's school. I am wearing white stockings with a jerry curl, with a skirt too long and a coat too short. No, nobody but Jesus could have helped me at that particular time. Gail just said to me yesterday, no way you could have made it today. No way. No way you could have. No way you could have made it. But I understood that there was a common denominator in the human experience, because we had already been talking to all these women in Chicago for years, and their feelings and their emotions and what they had been through. So I know that just because you are across the state line in Iowa, you're not gonna feel any different, or because you're in Michigan, you're not gonna feel any different, because you're in Ohio, because you're in Seattle, because you're in Boston, you don't feel any different. It's all the same. Everybody who's been cheated on feels the same, no matter what color you are. You feel the same. You mad. You mad. All right, somebody over there. Got it. That's how you do it. All the story. You get to, yes, ma'am.
I'm Brittany Packman, and I am in a place of deep gratitude and confirmation. I want to ask you about calling.
Yeah.
I was one of those folks who struggled because I was running from mine. Finally decided that I wanted to get in alignment, and discovered in just the past few weeks that my calling is very simply to speak truth. 2 days after I discovered that, I got the invitation to be on stage here.
That's what happened.
And that's because that's
what I mean.
happened.
That's the way it happened.
And as I walked through the exhibit before this portion, I read the journal entry that you wrote the midnight before the airing of your first national show, where you said, maybe this is my calling.
Yeah.
And I would love to know from you, what took you from the place of maybe to assuredness in your calling, and keeps you in the place of being unafraid and unapologetic about exactly what it is?
Great question. Yes. Well, what took me from maybe to a certainty was actually a show I did with the Ku Klux Klan. And that's why everything, this is what I wanted to, if I leave you with nothing else, it's just know this for sure. There is not one thing that has ever happened to you, not one experience, not one encounter, not one crisis, not one joyful thing that hasn't happened just to make you better and help you rise. Every single thing you're calling in, whether you know it or not, and when you figure out that you are calling it in, when you actually start meditating or praying or doing or having a spiritual practice, which is the number one thing you need if you want to be successful in the world. You need something that gives back and nourishes you, regardless of what you call that. You need to fill your cup so that you can be so full, your cup runneth over, and you have enough to give to other people. If you don't fill your cup, you end up dried up. You end up tired, exhausted, and don't have enough to give to other people. You end up resentful every time somebody asks you because your cup is empty and now they want some of yours. So your number one job is to fill your cup and make yourself whole. That's your job. So it went from calling to, I was happy to just to be on TV. I'd been on TV since I was 19. I met my best friend, Gail, in Baltimore. I knew that wasn't my calling, being a television reporter. I hated it. She loves it. And I knew she loves it. I hated it. I always felt out of alignment with myself. But my father was like, girl, don't give up that job. You making $25,000 a year and you 25? Don't give up that job. So I had those voices, but every day I wouldn't say agony. I was trying to find how can I be myself, be real on the air. And I always felt like I was pretending and that I was out of alignment. And then when they got ready to fire me, they were going to fire me. But they didn't want to release me from the contract. So they thought, well, let's just pay her out and we can get her to do this talk show thing. So they literally put me on the talk show to get me out of the way. And the very first day, I sat on there interviewing the Carvel ice cream man about his multiple flavors. And Benny from All My Children, remember? Benny used to be on All My Children. Those were my two first guests. And doing Dialing for Dollars in between, I knew that I had come home to myself. I could not predict that it would turn into what it has, but I knew that I could finally breathe and I was no longer pretending to restrict my feelings, because I'd go out on stories and I would empathize with people. I'd feel bad for them and that would show up in the work, and then I would, get a little slip from my boss because I had a, really aggressive, bad boss. So I started to feel then, this is the job that I want, but I didn't know about calling. I was interviewing a woman on one of the shows. It was so impressive for me to see all the shows that we've done. Lord, it made me tired looking at it. But I was interviewing a woman. It was a show called The Wives Meet the Mistresses, or some crazy thing. And this woman was on, and it was a live show, and in the middle of it, her husband tells the wife and our entire audience and the world that his mistress was pregnant. Yes. To this day, it makes my eyes water because I saw his wife's face. And I felt her humiliation. And I said, I will quit TV if I have to do this. I won't do this anymore. And my producer's like, what are we going to do? This is what everybody's doing. And then during that same time period, so I said, I'm not going to do anything like that anymore. I'm not going to bring people on TV. First of all, we didn't know that moment was going to happen. They were like, we didn't know it was going to happen. But that should not happen on television. And I do not want to be a part of the energy that caused somebody to feel that, because that's now going to come back to me. I got to pay for that. Then I was interviewing the KKK on stage. That was the day the one guy called me a monkey in the audience. And during commercial break, I could see them signaling each other. And just watching them and their behavior, I thought, they get it. I don't get it. They are using me. They are using this platform because they understand, because I'm thinking, I'm going to tell you all about the KKK. They were using it to recruit members for themselves. They were using it to recruit their base. And I then went to the producers and said, I'm not doing a show like that. So they said, you're not going to do the mistresses. You're not going to do the KKK. What are we going to do? So I said, we are going to create a baseline for ourselves that's based on intention. This was around 1989 when I'd read Gary Zukav's book called The Seat of the Soul. And that book was life-changing for me because in it he talked about the power of intention, and that cause and effect, what goes out comes back, is determined by your intention. The energy of your intention is what determines your life. Most people don't think about their intention. They just think about what they want to do. Most people don't think about why they want to do it. But what's going to come back to you, the energy that's going to come back to you, is the real why of why you did it. And so I then said to my producers, we're not going to do any shows that are not intentional. So don't bring me an idea unless you have an intention for the show that you want the outcome to be. And we're going to strive to see if we can live up to our intentions. And so around the late 80s, we started a pre-show to talk about what the intention was, and then a post-show after every single show to say, did we fulfill that intention? And that's about the time I realized this is bigger than me. And my journal prayers, if you were to look at my journal over the years, is that I started to recognize that it wasn't just a show. And the KKK helped me to see that. It wasn't a show. It was a platform to be used as a mission. Just like they were recruiting their base, I could recruit mine. And I was going to recruit for good. So I said to the producers, we're going to be a force for good. We're going to use this to inspire, your question. And we're going to use this to uplift wherever we can. And we're going to use it to inspire, uplift, encourage, and entertain. And so your show ideas have to include some little bit of all of that. Did it inspire somebody? Did it uplift somebody? Did it encourage somebody? And did you also do that in a way that was entertaining? And you will know it's your calling when you would do it for nothing. You will know that you will know that you're in alignment, because the flow is so, I mean, we worked, our team worked 14, 18-hour days every single day. And then we'd take 3 months off and then come back and try to do better. We were our own competition, the only competition